Hey folks, welcome back to Transplant Helper again today. My name is Jim Merle, and today we're basically going to be picking up exactly where we left off on the previous episode, and that is by continuing to discuss the really important subject of medication management. It is my belief, my firm belief as a matter of fact, that there is no more important thing that we can learn about and focus on to living a successful life post-transplant than medication management. I honestly believe that all of us, somewhere in our homes, should have a placard on the wall or maybe a name badge we wear with pride that says that we're a qualified, certified medication manager. That's really what we have to be if we want to have the best, most successful life possible. So even though on the previous episode the other day I took my entire medication bag out, sat down with those medications, talked to you about the usage, the side effects, some of my personal experience, and some precautions with those medications. By the way, if you haven't seen that, I'll link it up here as well as in the description below. But we're going to move on from that today. I'm going to basically give you some tips, some tricks, some mindsets, some ways of thinking about your medication that I promise you will help to improve the way you manage your medication. So let's jump right in. The very first one, it'll be the most obvious. So yes, I'm Captain Obvious. The very first one you need to know about is that you need to manage your medications, and you need to be taking your medications on time, every time, and in the right way. Okay, that's very simple, very basic, but it's the absolute truth. When you boil everything down that we deal with and concerning our medications, taking them on time, every time, and in the right way sometimes can be the most difficult part because it's so tempting. I've had whole videos on this. It's so tempting sometimes because of the side effects, the problems, the issues that arise, both short-term and long-term. It's so tempting to want to just back up and say, I don't want to take it. I don't want to take 4 of them. I want to take 3, or I don't want to take it every 6 hours. I want to take it every 12 hours, that sort of thing. It's tempting to do that because we feel as if we can regulate our medications and make ourselves feel better. But sometimes feeling better is not the main priority, particularly when you're talking about anti-rejection / immunosuppressant drugs. Feeling better is so important, but it's not the main thing of importance. Survival is the main important thing. So until you make a sit-down talk or have a sit-down talk with your team and make a decision with your team to change a medication, maybe to take it more or less often or change to a different product or a different dosage, you don't do that. Take them on time, every time in the right way, exactly as prescribed. And I always say that, but hey, it's the most important thing. Next, I would encourage you as well to become the expert. You become the expert when it comes to your medications. Don't just know that, yeah, I take a whole bag of medications. I take 52 pills in the morning and 64 at night or whatever your numbers are. Mine aren't nearly that, by the way, but don't just know that you take medication. Know exactly what you take. Be able to identify those pills. To pull a pill out of an empty bottle, perhaps with no label, and say, this is this. It's this pill. It's this size, this shape, this color, has this coating or this engraved coating on it, whatever. Be able to identify your medication visually. Be able to make sure that you know that this medication in this bottle is exactly what it's supposed to be. Because there have been a handful of times where a pharmacist has to make an adjustment, has to make a substitution or a change, or maybe a doctor writes a prescription a little bit differently, and you get your medication, it may not look exactly right. But if you don't know what it was supposed to look like, you won't recognize what it does look like. So be sure you know your medications inside and out. That is extremely important. You got to be prepared for those potential, at least, for mistakes, and make sure that you are the one who would catch those mistakes before they go too far. Next, I would advise you as well, just kind of more of a sub note to that one. Let someone in your life, your caregiver, whether it's your spouse, your parent, your best friend, your whoever they are, let someone else in your life be kind of second in command of those medications. Let them be, if you're the expert, maybe they're the specialist or something like that. Let them get to know your medications as well so they can identify them in or out of the bottles, so they can identify what you take, when you take, and how you take it, because you never know. Things arise. They've arisen in my life. I've got the card to prove it, where you get sick. It may not even be transplant related, but you get sick, you get down, like I did a few years ago with a terrible stomach virus. I was down, and I had to just basically tell my wife, hey, go get my medications, and I hadn't already sorted them or doled them out or whatever. Well, she knew enough about it to do exactly what I needed to bring them to me. So let someone else get into your life and get to know your medications as well. Now, Number next, and I'm trying to put these in order logically of importance. I don't know. But number next, I would say, get a system that works for you and use it. I've heard people before, and I've been one of those who've argued, is it better to use the bottles, the bags, or the box, the pill boxes? Which one is better? Answer is yes, they're all better. It depends on what works for you. Do not take just the advice of one person or this person or that one and say, well, this is the way I got to do it. Because I'll tell you, I have changed the way I take my medications from beginning to end. When I first started out, I took all my medication straight out of the bottle, never varied from that. When I sat down for every single dose, I poured the medication out in my hand that I needed from each bottle, popped that was it. That was good because it helped me to learn my medication. That was good because I got used to seeing those labels, all the information that's on those labels and identifying or at least associating that with a pill that's inside. It was also good because I never ran out of medications. I was reminded up to 4 times a day, hey, this bottle's getting low. So 4 times a day I had an opportunity to pick up the phone, call the pharmacist, reorder, whatever, call the doctor, get a new prescription. That was all good in taking them in the bottles. But for convenience sake, I went a little bit later taking them in bags. And basically I just doled my medications out in little, tiny Ziploc bags you get at the pharmacist, whatever. Dole those out, that worked okay. But those bags didn't necessarily have exactly the right labeling. They didn't exactly have, all the information every time because I was sometimes lazy. And so that didn't work as well. I finally moved, like many of you have already done so, I finally moved to using a pill box, okay? And I've reviewed several, I've used several, I've recommended several, but using a pill box, that's great because that shows you whether or not you've taken your morning dose, your evening dose, whatever. You can visually see that. That's good. But don't go too far with that or any of that because it would be too easy. And I know people who've done so who make a mistake. They sit down for their weekly. Some people do monthly. I even know one person who does 90-day supplies of medication. They sit down and put that in their pill box every 90 days. That's not a good idea, really, because if you make a mistake, then it's magnified across the whole 90 days. If you get, for example, a blood pressure pill where there ought to be an anti-rejection pill or vice versa, that can be a problem if you get out of whack on that. So I would encourage you to kind of keep it inside of a week or something like that. But if you want to dole out your medication, fine. If you want to keep in the bottle, fine. The point is, find something that works well for you. That's extremely important. Tip number next, I would say not only what we mentioned, but I would add to that, try your best, and this will take time, but try to get kind of a backlog, kind of a little bit of extra medication piled up. Now, I don't think it's a good idea to get, say, like 90-day supplies ahead of things and have pills that are going to be expiring or going out of date or whatever. But I do think it's important to build up just a little cushion of your medication. That way, if the pharmacy's slow or insurance doesn't clear something or a doctor doesn't get a prescription written in time or whatever, you've got that little cushion. You've got that little backup of medication that you can take. And I think that's extremely important because I've seen people, my good friends even, that have run into issues where they say, I hadn't had any of my medications in a week because I'm waiting on the pharmacy, I'm waiting on this back order, I'm waiting on this shortage or whatever. Don't get into that. Let a little cushion of medication build up behind you and then take that cushion that you have and be sure to store it away kind of separate from where your medications are. I had a good friend of mine, Miss Alice. Thank you, Miss Alice, and Olivia and the whole family. Thank you for this. But Miss Alice is a pharmacist over in Birmingham, and she advised me one time to take some medication, about a week's worth, if I can build it up, take up that cushion of medication and put it aside. Maybe put it in a fireproof or waterproof box in case there's some kind of disaster. We live kind of in tornado, hurricane / country here in Alabama. And she said, put it aside in case there's a fire, in case there's another issue. Put it aside. That way that if a natural disaster comes, you're not without your medication. It's a good idea as well, if possible. Say you've got a family member that lives across town or maybe the next town over. Get them up a week's supply of medication if you can, or at least a day or two supply of medication. Let them hold that for you. That way, no matter where you're at, there's always someone who has access to medication. There's never a time when you're completely without. I think that's a really good idea to do that. So these are just some basic tips, things that you need to do and know to do. Again, to rewind and review them. Take your medication on time every time and in the right way. Be sure that you're the expert and involve other people. Be sure that you have some sort of a backlog of medications, a safe place where medications can be kept. I think that's extremely important, and I think these are just tips that'll help you. I'll probably think of some more another day, and we'll come back to this, but at least for right now, I think that could help. At least it has helped me in the past. Do whatever works for you. That is the key to all of this. Do what works for you, and be sure that you're taking care of yourself first and foremost. Stay stronger, friends.